Hello, BookTube. It's Wednesday, and the door is locked, and your phone is disabled, and I have a 6-inch by 6-inch piece of ordinary cellophane and a little rubber eraser. And you know what that means. It's time for TBR torture. I have 6 books I want to show you. 3 of them I have read in one form or another, in one way or another, and 3 of them I have not read. And I want to start with the 3 that I have read in one form or another, or in one way or another. Only one of the 3 have I actually read in the normal way that we think of. Because, well, you'll see. The first is a collection of short stories by Nancy Hale. This is Where the Light Falls. Selected stories of Nancy Hale, who was born in Boston in 1908 and wrote for The New Yorker forever. Oh, God, I don't even have any idea. Dozens and dozens and dozens of stories for The New Yorker. And novels that came out in their time were really well regarded by the smart set. Not the magazine, not necessarily the magazine, but the smart readers, discriminating readers, really treasured a new novel by Nancy Hale. She wrote a bunch of other things, including a very good memoir, and then fell through the cracks, just fell out of the light of day completely. And who is this? The Library of America has decided to reprint her in this lovely edition. This is a collection of her short stories. It's edited with an introduction by Lauren Groff. And Lauren Groff doesn't always do it for me as a novelist in her own right, but her introduction is wonderful, where she says she is very leery of the biographical fallacy of literary interpretation, where every detail that you see in a story you think must map onto a detail in the author's life. I don't know why she'd be leery of that. We live in the age of autofiction. And the incredible laziness of just mimeographing your own life and then calling it a novel. But in her introduction shows that she is not just a hired gun that the publisher went to. She clearly knows Nancy Hale's stories and novels fairly well. But she finds a lot of parallels with Nancy Hale's own life. I should hold this over here, right? You want to see the bean. I put pillows up so that I wouldn't be blasting you with light. But the bean likes to be right near me. She doesn't like to be right on top of me, like Lucy, like my dear little hippo, needed to be not only near me, but on top of me, or wedged against me, at all times when I was stationary, all the time. So if you look at the earliest videos, the first months and months and months on this channel, and you see me talking to you, and you don't see any dogs, Lucy's right next to me the whole time that I'm on those videos. Frida isn't quite that way. She doesn't need to be pressed against me, but she needs to be near me. She needs to be within hand's reach. And I have a feeling, I don't know for sure, I'm not forecasting the future, but I have a feeling that as she gets older, she is going to want to be next to me, just on my lap or right under my arm or whatever. We shall see. But anyway, this is a cause for joy. And it reminds me of something that I mention on this channel quite often, which is the reprint culture in American publishing, which is not as strong as it could be. There are certainly things that I wish were more robust, reprinting in the genres, for instance. Maybe not romance, since how could you? It's just an endless stream. But mystery novels, certainly, yes. Or science fiction and fantasy, oh my, yes, absolutely. But even so, even with those lapses, things like this come along regularly. This is just an absolute delight. And that's what I meant when I said that I have read it in one form or another, because I was a big fan of Nancy Hale's short stories and loved them when I saw them. And I've never had a collection of hers. I don't know that there's ever been a collection of hers. I don't have any of her novels anymore. I don't have any issues of The New Yorker that had her stories in them. But now I have this book, so I will get to revisit the world of her fiction and her particular voice, which is wonderful. That's a wonderful feeling. And the same thing's true with this next one. I have read it, but not in its current form. This is the form it belonged in all along. This is Hard Case Crime, a vintage. Isn't that right? Macmillan, Random House does a Hard Case Crime, where they do these crime novels with the lurid period covers, the 1950s period covers. And this one is by Joyce Carol Oates. And this is The Triumph of the SpiderMonkey. Look at that cover. And this is her story, the Triumph of the SpiderMonkey, which appeared, oh God, I don't even know how long ago. When did it do? When did that first appear? I wonder if this will tell me in any easy way. 1974. And then there's also a little story that she did in a literary journal that is tangentially connected to The Triumph of the SpiderMonkey, and that is reprinted here with the novella for the first time. So, kudos to Hard Case Crime. Is another example of how reprint culture in America is innovative, and it never sleeps. So that's great. I'm right in the path of it, so I get to see the fun stuff here. And I haven't read this in so long. It is Joyce Carol Oates writing in a devil-may-care register, which she's really good at, and she doesn't always do it. I myself would like it if she did more, but you're not paying attention to anything I'm saying, are you? You're not paying attention to me at all. Anyway, this is here. Let me see. Abandoned as a baby in a bus station locker, shuttled from one abusive foster home and detention center to another, Bobby Gottson grew up angry, hurting, damaged. His hunger to succeed as a musician brought him across the country to Hollywood, but along with it came his seething rage, his paranoid delusions, and his capacity for acts of shocking violence. Unavailable for 40 years, The Triumph of the SpiderMonkey is an eloquent, terrifying, heartbreaking exploration of madness by one of the most acclaimed authors of the past century. This definitive edition, for the first time, pairs the original novel with a never-before-collected companion novella by Joyce Carol Oates, unseen since its sole publication in a literary journal nearly half a century ago, which examines the impact of Gotteson's killing spree on a woman who survived it. Can't wait. Absolutely can't wait. And then the third one of the 6 books here that I have read is the only one that I have read in the normal way of reading a book. This is not a trip down memory lane. This is a new book. I don't think it's out yet. I think it comes out... what do we have here? Yeah, late August. This comes out in late August, so we still have a month to go. But this is by Maggie Ryan Sanford, with illustrations by Rhoda Capreto, and it's called Consider the Platypus. Evolution through biology's most baffling beasts. And there's the platypus, of course. There's the octopus. There are all kinds of creatures in here, from simple things like the horse or the whale to extremophiles, organisms that live in boiling hot water where no chemical processes should be possible, or freezing cold temperatures. And squarely in the middle of this book is a confusing creature called Homo sapiens. There are illustrations. There are original illustrations all throughout. There's a bonobo. See that? Intentionally made to look more like a human than a chimpanzee. But there is a house mouse. And the book is designed to show the amazing evolutionary adaptations of all of these things and their histories, their connection to humans, their life history as far as we can reconstruct it. And I just love that. I love the fact. At first, I thought this was going to be things like the platypus, the octopus, the chameleon, the usual rogues gallery of exotic animals. I love the fact that all animals are in here, and that all animals are odd in their own way. And reading it was wonderful. Reading it was just, the author has a terrific knack for breaking down complex material and presenting it really accessibly without dumbing it down. And the illustrations, of course, didn't hurt. And I learned a lot about almost every animal, including humans. So the author has some sort of weird fixation with the human salivary gland. But I learned a lot about house mice, too, which I would have smiled a lot more fondly once upon a time, because when my old dogs were sick and were dying, they were starting to die, the house mice here at Hyde Cottage became incredibly bold. I think I took pictures. If you dig back on my Instagram, you'll see them, or on Twitter. They would just walk out into the middle of the room when my girls were asleep, one on either side of me, because they knew that the girls couldn't hear them, couldn't smell them anymore, couldn't see them, and wouldn't be able to get up. And they needed my help to get up, and it took 20 minutes each to do. So the mice knew they were in no danger at all. I myself, of course, would never kill a mouse. I'm not in a million years. I wouldn't kill a mouse or a rat. They have every right to live here the same as I do. And you're usually very good roommates. So they just became very complacent. They wandered all around. I named one of them and was never sorry to see him. And he got to the point where he would not immediately scurry away if he saw me move. He waited to see if I was coming in his direction. Otherwise, he would just sit there on the floor and look at me. And unfortunately, I'm okay talking to humans, and I'm perfectly well. I'm perfectly fluent in talking to dogs, but I don't know how to make anything clear to a mouse. So I could not warn Toulouse and his family. I could not warn them that random chance, totally random chance. It was not my plan. Lucy died. Malin was very old, very weak. She was losing control of her bowels. She was clearly dying. And my plan, if I had to have a plan, was that if it came to me adopting a dog, I would go to the nearest rescue society and adopt a very old dog. They're the ones who need it the most, and I am ready. I am strong enough to take taking care of an old dog and then losing them. I wanted to do that. That was my plan. It was just random chance that brought me not only a dog, but a terrier. And not only a terrier, but a terrier that has been bred for 400 years, specifically to hunt mice. and when Frida was just a little baby, when she was just a little thing, you saw her on this channel. If you go back to Shake Tube a couple of years ago, you'll see her as a tiny little thing. No whiskers, no eyebrows, just this little mouse. When she was a tiny little baby, I didn't think anything of it. Toulouse and his family kept wandering all around. They had a feeling there was some new animal in the place, but they didn't seem to mind. They certainly didn't think one way or another about it. They just kept patrolling the spaces under the counters and the spaces under the table to see if there were any crumbs. And I didn't think anything of it either. I thought, well, surely you'd have to train one of these dogs to do any kind of mousing. Surely that kind of thing is not genetic. And then once Frida stopped flopping around, once she actually achieved muscle mass, her muscles finished developing around the time that she was maybe 4 or 5 months old, I remember it vividly. I was playing with her on the floor, and Toulouse wandered across the kitchen floor in the next room, and Frida caught a glimpse of his movement out of the corner of her eye, and I swear I have never seen a living animal move so fast. Toulouse didn't have a chance. He didn't have a chance. I had no conception that an animal that I still considered a puppy could move that fast, or that accurately, and in short work. I mean, it was no more than a couple of weeks till there weren't any mice here anymore. She would present some of them to me, but they were just done for. And so I don't have any house mice in here. So that raised a little pang when I read that part. But I really do recommend this. Those of you who like popular science books, especially something that you might want to walk through with kids, because the marvel of this writer is that she makes it so that it's perfectly satisfying to adults and children. You can't go wrong with a book like this. You just can't. So those are the 3 that I have read. And they are all recommendations. Nancy Hale, of course I'm going to recommend her. It never in a million years occurred to me that anybody would ever think to collect her. I wish this collection were much bigger. I wish it were twice this size. But I'll certainly take it. And then we have the 3 that I haven't read yet. And they are a little bit all over the map, but you've come to expect that. The first one is a steamy romance. This is by the great J.R. Ward. And this is Blood Truth, a Black Dagger legacy book. Not the Black Dagger Brotherhood, which is about age-old society of super sexy warrior vampires, but rather the Black Dagger legacy, which is about the continuation of, and the sidekicks of, and the apprentices of a super sexy vampire warrior clan, and their interactions with the mortal world. This book is about a trainee in the Black Dagger Brotherhood who partners up with a human cop to stop a serial killer. But it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. These books are addictive, and I have read them all, and I absolutely love them. This comes out in mid-August, but I'm going to gobble it. I'm going to gobble it down right away. I'm not going to wait until mid-August to do it. This next one is fiction. It's contemporary fiction, and it's not only contemporary fiction, it's Brexit fiction. So some of you are probably heading to the hills by now, but I'm going to give it a try, because the author's book, his previous book, was one that I ended up really liking. This is Jonathan Coe's book, Middle England. He did the Wishaw Legacy, which I actually kind of liked. And this is about Brexit, yes? Beginning 9 years ago on the outskirts of Birmingham, where car factories have been replaced by chain retail, and London, plagued by both frenzied riots and Olympic fever, Middle England tracks a brilliantly vivid cast of characters through the transformation of their society. There are the newlyweds, Ian and Sophie, who disagree about England's future and possibly their relationship. There's Doug, the political commentator who writes impassioned columns about austerity for his princely Chelsea townhouse, while his radical teenage daughter undertakes a relentless quest for universal justice. There's Benjamin Trotter, who embarks on an apparently doomed new career in middle age, and his father, Colin, whose last wish is to vote leave in the Brexit referendum. And I haven't got quite a bead on what I'm to expect here. I'm hoping that there's quite a bit of Poe-faced comedy in here. That would be great. But we shall see. It's on the agenda. And then the last one here is some dark territory, and I would be amazed if this book is as dark as the territory actually gets. The territory doesn't get much worse than this, and I didn't think there'd ever be a book on it. And we'll see how deep it goes. This is by Stephen Kinzer, who wrote a book called All the Shah's Men, which I really liked, and this is called Poisoner in Chief: Sidney Gottlieb and the CIA Search for Mind Control. And at first I couldn't believe that I was seeing a book on this subject. This is about the mastermind behind MK Ultra, the CIA's decades-long program of developing effective mind control, and all the ways that they did that. and Gottlieb was at the heart of it all. He was the mastermind of MK Ultra, and this is a deep, dark story with long tentacles that stretch everywhere. I used to have an old friend who was a conspiracy theorist and who was, I think, in his day, when he was alive, the world's greatest expert on MK Ultra. I don't think there was anything about MK Ultra that he didn't know, although there was quite a bit that he didn't include in his speeches or ever publish. But he went after this subject like a terrier goes after a bone, and I don't believe that a lot of what he learned will be in this book, and a lot of what he learned struck me as incontrovertible. But I could be wrong. This could go as deep as things go. This is... the author is, he's written 9 books, including All the Shah's Men. He's an award-winning foreign correspondent, and he served as the New York Times bureau chief in Nicaragua, Germany, and Turkey. He's a senior fellow at the Watson Institute for International and Public Affairs at Brown University, and writes a world affairs column for the Boston Globe. And he lives in Boston. It'd be neat to interview him. It'd be really neat. I'll have to see if maybe that's a possibility. But I don't know what... Let me tell you a little more about this. The visionary chemist, Sidney Gottlieb, was the CIA's master magician and gentle-hearted torturer, the agency's poisoner-in-chief. As head of MK Ultra, mind control project, he ran brutal experiments at secret prisons on 3 continents. He made pills, powders, and potions that could kill or maim without a trace. He paid prostitutes to lure clients to CIA-run bordellos, where they were dosed with LSD and other drugs. For years, he was the chief supplier of spy tools used by the CIA officers around the world. And I don't know what kind of documentation Kinzer's going to draw on to get anywhere near this guy. I'd be fascinated to find out. All of these 3 are on my docket right away. They're on the launch pad, so I will find out. But that is your Wednesday TBR torture, and it was all over the map, as promised. There's Poisoner in Chief. Unbelievable. A book about MK Ultra. Then Middle England, by Jonathan Coe. Blood Truth by the indefatigable J.R. Ward. Then we have Consider the Platypus, a well-illustrated new guide to the evolutionary backgrounds of a whole, 36 species, including our own. Where the Light Falls, selected stories by Nancy Hale. Wonderful. Wouldn't at all object to a couple of novels from Library America. And The Triumph of the SpiderMonkey by a little-known writer called Joyce Carol Oates. So that's our Wednesday TBR torture. And I will be back tomorrow, perhaps with more. Thank you, BookTube.